In my previous video, I did my top 5 best drivers of 2021, but it is that time, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to celebrate the best of the worst. It's also a bit of a gloomy day outside as I'm recording. I don't know if that is an omen, but yes, in this video, we're going to be talking about the top 5 worst drivers of this season. And now, as I mentioned in my previous video, I did my top 5 best, and if you've not seen that, then I will have that linked in the description box down below, so definitely give that a watch as well. And as always, don't forget to let me know your top 5 worst drivers in the comments box below, and also give little reasons as to why you've picked those drivers. Anyway, let's get into the best of the worst of 2021. Now, similar to my top 5 best drivers, I am going to start really quickly with a few honourable mentions of drivers who just narrowly avoided missing out on this list. The 2 drivers that I'm going to give honourable mentions to are number 1, Kimi Räikkönen, and number 2, Daniel Ricciardo. Now, first of all, let's quickly talk about Kimi. I don't think this was a great Kimi Räikkönen season. Whilst I do think that you can see his experience and his kind of inner racing ability, it has still kind of shone in races. Certainly on a Sunday, he's had a really poor season in terms of a Saturday and qualifying. It just, you can tell that this was kind of Kimi on his last legs. The talent is still there and you can see it, and that's why he did beat his teammate Antonio Giovinazzi, but I don't think that actually means he had a good season. There were quite a few incidents there and there as well, so yeah, certainly not one of Kimi's greatest ever seasons, and I think it was time for him to go. And as sad as I am to see him go, yeah, I think it was definitely the right time. Now, Daniel Ricciardo, yeah, this is a hard one to talk about. I'm a big Ricciardo fan, but let's be honest, he had a shocking season, no doubt about it. Again, he only just misses out on my top 5 worst drivers, and the reason for that is simply because he got the win. That saved him, in my opinion, on a weekend in Monza where the car was clearly working really well. He capitalized it. He used all of his kind of years of experience and that knowledge of winning races. He had a good quali, he had a good sprint race, and then he also had a good race full stop when he had a great start and held off Max Verstappen, so he thoroughly deserved that win, and he grabbed the opportunity when it was available, but it doesn't mean that he had a good enough season. Again, he only just misses out, I suppose, luckily, on my top 5 worst drivers, but yeah, this is going to be a season to forget for Daniel Ricciardo, and he'd be really hoping to actually have a big bounce back in 2022. So yes, Ricciardo and Räikkönen just miss out, luckily, on my top 5 worst drivers, but yeah, both of them had, let's say, seasons to forget. Anyway, enough of all of that. Let's get into the top 5, and in 5th place, I have got Lance Stroll. Now, just like with my top 5 best drivers, I will have some stats up on the screen, and the one stat that I do want to clarify is the race head-to-heads. Now, obviously, those head-to-head stats are between the teammates within the team, but that head-to-head stat is only for the races where both of the drivers finish, so that's why not all of them are going to add up to 22. Now, in terms of Lance Stroll, in my opinion, it's been really difficult to gauge Lance Stroll's season because there is an argument that he actually was a little bit more consistent than his brand new teammate Sebastian Vettel. Not only did he beat him in terms of the race head-to-heads when both of them finished, but he also scored points on more races than Seb as well. Now, ultimately, Seb's highs have been a lot higher than Lance's because even though that Aston Martin was not a great car, and especially in qualifying, it was very weak, in the races and on the Sunday, it did have a really good kind of pace in terms of the tyre management. It was quite, good and easy on its tyres compared to some of the other teams. And also just in the race, I think both Seb and also Lance kind of really came into their own in terms of like race pace, and also just, again, with the tyres as well. So there was more in the car on the Sunday, but even then, when the car was there and when the performance was there and the big opportunities were there, it was always Sebastian Vettel that was grabbing those opportunities, and that's totally down to Seb's speed, talent, and also just experience of being a world champion, or 4-time world champion, of course. And I feel like Lance, there was an opportunity for Lance, I think, to beat Seb this season, but he just lacked that kind of, maybe you can say a little bit of luck, and also just a little bit of pace also when the car was there and kind of was able to get some decent results. There's also a few little comings together as well. Obviously, Hungary was the big one, but even between him and Seb as well, I think I remember in Monza and Russia, there were some really close battles there, and yeah, I find myself questioning this driver lineup because Sebastian Vettel has come into this team and he's done exactly what we expected Seb to do, and when it comes to Lance, I feel like he's had a bit of a weak season in my opinion. Yes, again, you can say he's been a bit more consistent than Seb, but yeah, I have not been blown away by Lance this season, and it kind of calls into question, in my opinion, is he still in that team for the long run? Because apart from the fact that his dad owns the team, I don't think the performances have been there to the point where, even as just a second driver, because we know that Seb is going to leave the team at some point, the same like Lewis, like Kimi has left Formula 1 now, and even Fernando, Seb is going to leave that team at some point, and is Lance Stroll even good enough to be kind of the number 2 driver, that strong, consistent point scorer? I'm still not sure. I don't think it's been a great season for Sir Lancelot. And yeah, I think he's gonna need a big bounce back, in my opinion, both in terms of pace and also just keeping kind of out of trouble in the races as well in terms of incidents in 2022. But yes, in 5th place, I have got Lance Stroll. Next up, coming in at number 4, I have got Antonio Giovinazzi. Now, if I was brutally honest with you, and if I just kind of skip over all of the waffle, I think Antonio Giovinazzi has bottled 2021, to be brutally honest with you. The reason why Kimi Räikkönen got kind of a mention, an honourable mention for my top 5 worst drivers, is that even though Kimi beat Gio, I don't think Kimi was actually that good. I think there was actually more pace in the Alfa Romeo, that a young, hungry, exciting kind of up-and-coming driver, maybe someone like Charles Leclerc, in his rookie season in 2018, I think that there was more potential and pace in the Alfa Romeo, and certainly there was more opportunities to score more points. That team should not have finished behind Williams. Their car over 2021 was much quicker than the Williams. I mean, yes, at times maybe the Williams package was better, but that was few and far between. In my opinion, Alfa kind of, as a team, really fumbled 2021, and so did Antonio Giovinazzi. Yes, he did beat Kimi Räikkönen in qualifying, and yes, he did get unlucky on multiple occasions, but with his seat on the line in 2021, there were multiple, and I'm talking like multiple races, where he genuinely bottled point scoring opportunities. Now, yes, again, he did get a little bit unlucky. I remember Mexico, the team put him on a terrible strategy when maybe he could have been in the points. But what about the earlier part of the season? He only really kind of turned it up. And also Monza, by the way, was a terrible kind of, that was a terrible lap 1 for him. That was a big opportunity for points as well, but he kind of drove into Sainz a little bit. So yeah, I mean, if he was that good, in terms of like, he really turned it up when his career was on the line and when kind of Huang Yuzhou was announced as his replacement, and by then it was too late. Where was all these good performances and where was all that potential and pace at the beginning of the season? Don't get me wrong, I'm gonna miss the Italian Jesus. I like him as a character. I want to see him on the grid, but I don't think, as much as he was very angry after he got dropped by Alfa Romeo, on the kind of judging off the back of his performances, I don't think he has anything to argue. He wasn't as consistent in the races as Kimi Räikkönen. He arguably had more pace, but again, if I was being honest and brutally honest, I do think that on multiple occasions, and in terms of his kind of future in Formula 1, I really do think that he bottled it in 2021. And again, as bad as that Alfa Romeo was, that team should not be finishing behind the Williams, and I think there was a lot more potential in terms of points and race finishes in that car than both Kimi and Antonio were able to deliver. And ultimately, I think both drivers were not that great this year, but yes, sadly, in 4th place, I've got Antonio Giovinazzi. We're into the top 3, and in 3rd place, I have got Nicholas Latifi. Now, there's no doubt that he has made progress over his rookie season, and I do think in terms of the positives, because I don't want to be kind of just 100% negative, similar to Lance Stroll and Giovinazzi, there were some really good performances. I mean, apart from the 2 races where he scored points, I actually think that his best race the entire season was actually in Monza, because he did a really good job during the sprint quali, and he was also genuinely fighting for points until I think it was that safety car that kind of did him over, and in the end, he finished just outside in 11th place. Now, again, it might be a little bit strange that I think that's his best performance, but it's not always the points that you score. It's not always that kind of defines how good you were. And I think Monza was probably his best weekend over the entire season. But even so, I mean, as much as he's improved, as much as he's had some okay performances in, again, a relatively difficult Williams, I mean, he is still being absolutely battered by George Russell. Yes, it kind of got a little bit better towards the end of the season, and I do think that has something to say about George as well. I feel like almost once he did get that Mercedes contract, I do feel like, you know, George Russell kind of dropped off just a little bit. Maybe he lifted his foot a little bit off the gas in the last couple of races, but even so, when it comes to Latifi, I just haven't seen even moments and glimpses of potential pace to the point of, if he was given a midfield car, like even if he was given an Aston Martin, would he be scoring points or, you know, or maybe 6 or 7 times over the course of 2021? I'm just not sure. I haven't seen that progression yet. Maybe it's there, and if Williams do improve with their car, maybe he will become kind of a good midfield driver, but in my opinion, I haven't even seen that potential yet. 2022 is going to be massive for Latifi, because with Alex Albon coming in after a year out of Formula 1, and then Nicholas Latifi, who's been at Williams for 2 years now, that's going to be a massive test. And if he gets slapped up, and then especially if he gets dominated by Albon, I think there's going to be some serious questions about his future beyond the money that he can bring to Williams. So yeah, in my opinion, I just haven't been that impressed. Yes, there's been a few good races. Again, Monza, I think, was probably his best race of the season, but ultimately, I don't think he's done that great of a job, and I think there are a lot of drivers that I could think of in my head that could have done a better job, and that's why he is my 3rd worst driver of 2021. Just 2 drivers to go, and in 2nd place, I have got Yuki Tsunoda. Oh, Yuki, man. Yeah, it was a bad season. Now, I'm a big fan of Yuki Tsunoda. I loved watching him in Formula 2, and I was so excited. And by the way, and I'm going to take an L for this, on a podcast at the beginning of the year, I actually predicted that Yuki Tsunoda would beat Pierre Gasly in 2021. Yes, L in the chat for me. That was a very bad prediction, and a really bad prediction, actually. And ultimately, I feel like Formula 1, I think, came just a year or two a little bit too soon for Yuki. He really struggled to adjust with not just driving the car, and not actually just the racing. I feel like he struggled with everything that comes along with being a Formula 1 driver. And I'm talking like, you know, what everyone hears, like the whole team radio incident at the beginning of the season. Like, he was just a bit too heated. He didn't look like he was kind of, you know, cool and composed in the car, and also maybe a little bit culturally as well. And that's something that Franz Tost, who was the team principal of AlphaTauri, that's something that he's talked about as well. It's took a little bit of time to kind of ingrain himself into Formula 1, and kind of, especially with the team being in Europe, and just kind of culturally as well. So yeah, it's a difficult one for Yuki. The talent is there. The guy is quick. The guy clearly has something about him, but yeah, he himself has admitted that he struggled a little bit with pressure, especially at the beginning of the season. He was just going 100%, just a little bit too much. There were so many incidents and so many crashes that have cost the team, I'm sure, a lot of money, but yeah, it's a weird one with Yuki. I mean, he almost got, by the way, whitewashed in qualifying by Pierre Gasly until the last race of the season. So in Abu Dhabi, he did manage to out-qualify Pierre, but either way, that's not much to celebrate. It's been a bad season. Again, he is a rookie, so maybe you kind of give him the grace, but, you know, he's had a really good car. That's the thing I always come back to when we talk about the likes of, you know, when we talk about the likes of the Haas drivers, and we talk about the likes of even Nicholas Latifi, those guys have bad cars. Yuki Tsunoda came into Formula 1 with the 5th fastest car in Formula 1. A great package, a great team, yes, a strong teammate, but it's not like there's a bad dynamic or really competitive and toxic dynamic there. He's just underdelivered. Again, I think Formula 1 came just a year too soon. I do still think that the potential is there for something special. I do still think that with a bit more development, a bit more kind of arm around the shoulder, and we know the Toro Rosso team and also, the AlphaTauri team is great at developing young drivers, and it is just a process, but with so many amazing Red Bull juniors, you know, in the pipeline, and even Yuki himself was actually surprised when he got the contract extension for 2022. So yeah, Yuki Tsunoda is a rough diamond, but he had, in my opinion, a very poor rookie season in 2021, especially given how good of a car he was given. Well, we are now down to the #1 worst driver in 2021, in my opinion, and that is Nikita Mazepin. Now, I did actually have a really long and hard think about whether it should be Yuki or Nikita, but ultimately what it came down to me is that I did not expect Nikita Mazepin to score points or score multiple points or podiums or anything like that. I knew Haas was going to be at the back of the grid. I knew that he would struggle, but I think the reason why I've put him technically below Yuki Tsunoda, if that's what you want to look at it, obviously he's number one, but he's an even worse driver in 2021 in my opinion, is that Yuki Tsunoda had Pierre Gasly as his teammate. Gasly is one of the best drivers on the grid, and that was always going to be a difficult benchmark. Nikita Mazepin has another rookie in Mick Schumacher. Now, I know that Mick was the Formula 2 champion from last season, but even so, the gap between Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin, especially in qualifying, was ridiculous. Now, I don't actually have the stat with me, but I do remember looking that over the course of the entire season, I think it was something like 9/10 between the two of them, and that is just not good enough. You can say whatever you want about the races and some of the spins, because he kind of sorted that out, although there was still a few kind of rough moments between the two of them. And I mean, I think my biggest problem with Nikita is that, again, I understand that he's got the worst car. I understand how difficult it is to drive that Haas, but unlike with Mick, where there are just glimpses, little moments throughout the season where you think, do you know what, if I gave Mick a good, kind of a decent-ish midfield car, I think he could do a pretty decent job. I haven't seen those glimpses with Nikita Mazepin. He's been slow in qualifying, he hasn't really made up for it in the races, and there just hasn't been any moments. I mean, even his head-to-head against his teammate, he got dominated by Mick. And again, we're talking about rookie, and even going into this season, technically Nikita Mazepin, throughout all of his career, kind of with the amount of FP1s that he's been able to do and also tyre tests, he has more Formula 1 kind of experience than Mick Schumacher, and even so, he still got dominated by Mick. Now, I know that there was also some chassis issues as well midway through the season, but even when the chassis was changed, I mean, he wasn't any better. So looking at the gap between him and his rookie teammate, and that's the really important thing, he needs to deliver and he needs to prove, just like the likes of Nicholas Latifi and what I said with him, he needs to prove that he has potential, he has a future in Formula 1 beyond the money that he is bringing to Haas. So yes, my worst driver of the season is unfortunately Nikita Mazepin. Well, there you have it, another video wrapped up. Now, that is just my thoughts. Let me know your top 5 in the comments box below. I can't wait to see what you come up with. And if you did enjoy this video, then don't forget to drop it a like and smash that subscribe button to support the channel. And also keep an eye out for all of the amazing content that I have planned over the next few weeks. Anyway, I will see you in the next one.